WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net, mixing in some baseball and some politics, but sticking to football here during Steelers Week. Eric Edholm joins us now from Pro Football Weekly. I could give him some great big introduction and talk about all those years as the shutdown corner and talk about his true turnover chart out on Twitter each and every week, but you can find him yourself at Eric_Edholm, that's EDHOLM, as well as at Pro Football Weekly out of Illinois, where Maryland took care of business a couple weeks ago, but I'll leave you alone on all that Illini chat. Dude, we have a sick football team here right now at 4-4 and losing 3 out of 4, and here come the Pittsburgh Steelers with really the season kind of on the line Halloween week, and it's sort of weird right now to be playing the Steelers and wrapping things up with such an important game right now.
Yeah, I think it's, I think because of the two close losses, the New Orleans and the Cleveland game, I mean, you look at this and you say, what started as a pretty promising season all of a sudden has them, I don't want to say the season's over after this one, but it's a big one. And, they handled the first matchup. Things feel very different. Things feel eerily settled down a little bit in Pittsburgh, even with Le'Veon Bell still, in no man's land. But, yeah, things have definitely changed since the last time they faced each other, a little over a month ago.
Well, we'll talk about the Ravens in a minute, but it's interesting you would say settle down a little bit in Pittsburgh. I don't know that we always doubt that, right? I mean, I guess the Tomlin haters or Steelers haters, of which I'm a Steelers hater for sure. You always want it to be over. I mean, Luke and I were dragging the roller bag up the hill at 2:30 in the morning. Feels like 5 minutes ago, but it was 5 weeks ago, and it was like, we're 3-1, and they stink, and we just beat their ass. Hey, maybe this is the year we're the 13-3, and maybe this is the year the Ravens play from ahead. And I literally drove by the stadium, and I said to Luke, I wonder where it's going to be when this thing gets together before the bye, whether the Ravens are that 6-2 looking team right now and looking to deliver the knockout punch, but it's not like that at all. It's been an unraveling for the Ravens, and certainly for Flacco, for Harbaugh, where the season is, where their offensive line is. They're going to see the best of the Steelers this week.
Yeah, and it just a different makeup of the team, too. Defensively, the run game on offense, I mean, they barely ran the ball. I don't even know what the second half numbers were in that first matchup, but they weren't good, especially running the football. And defensively, they've just tightened a couple of screws here and there. I wouldn't say this is a great group or anything like that, but I would say that it's going to feel like a little bit tougher sledding, I think, and part of that's what the Ravens may be doing on offense, but part of it is the Steelers' own improvement from within. I mean, they've had to sit some guys, Artie Burns, former first-rounder. Bud Dupree still isn't the player anyone expected, but all of a sudden you look and, T.J. Watt's making plays, and the defensive line no longer looks like an awful unit, and the secondary still comes up with a big one here and there. So really the last 3-4 games have been a different look, and yeah, I mean, this is a primo matchup, and you look at the division, you say, how good is Cincinnati? Cleveland's going through their annual, reset button. It's just sort of wild that I don't think this is the 3 playoff team division that I may have imagined at one point.
Well, you mentioned things settling down there. Last time I was on the phone with the Pittsburgh people, the Le'Veon Bell thing was not only fresh as far as the feud with the offensive line, but it's, we need him to come back, and is he going to come back? And now they've saved $7 million, and it's more like stay away. They've found a running back in this offense who was a bit of a Panther legend and is also a cancer survivor, but at this point is amongst the league leaders in all-purpose yards and a guy who is playing the role and Wally Pipping Le'Veon Bell up in Pittsburgh right now. And I don't think anybody would have predicted that, certainly not in week 3 or week 4 when the Steelers were scuffling.
Yeah, and they just, it was almost like they didn't know how to fully use him or didn't fully trust him in the Le'Veon role. You know what I mean? It was like they were still holding back a little bit at that stage of the season. But now that they've seen what he's been able to do, he had a couple of late runs against Tampa Bay that seemed to almost open the box a little bit. And everybody went, oh, yeah, okay, he can still do this. He's not just a one-week wonder kind of guy. And yeah, it's really been a great impersonation of Le'Veon. I mean, they're different players, right? But he has won over Steelers fans. And that, the fact that he would play locally in college, the fact that he overcame so much, the lymphoma, the knee injury, everything. I mean, he's adored there now. And whereas Le'Veon Bell now finds himself kind of in this netherworld, and some people are wanting him gone. Some people are okay with him coming back, but understand that Connor is a big part of what they're doing offensively. So, I mean, you know, as a fan of the league, it's been fun to watch how they've been kind of able to transform themselves a little bit here. I know people in Baltimore aren't going to use fun with the Steelers very often. But
yeah, I'm not happy with it, right now. And, you know, it's fascinating. The running back position has been so maligned in this century as far as the value and what to spend on them. And where I'll tell you what, though, watching Kamara run around, watching the Ravens play without a Ray Rice since they had a Ray Rice, and there was 10 minutes of Justin Forsett as well, that when you have some sort of a factor back in McCaffrey last week, it changes everything about the game plan on the other side. Fast players move these defenses around.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. You know, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, I mean, these guys who are not what we used to think of the workhorse back, you know, the Jamal Lewis's, the Jerome Bettis's, whatever. I mean, that day is come and gone. I mean, those guys could still have a value in today's NFL. Would be far different, though. Would have a role that would be, you know, more like what Alex Collins is or whatever. So I just feel like NFL offensive coordinators, North Turner's done a great job in Carolina. You know, I mean, some of these guys, you know, obviously we know what Sean Payton's able to dial up in New Orleans. If you have that special back who can do a lot of different things, and you can put them on the field with 4 wide receivers, or you can put them in twin back situations where you don't know who's getting the ball, you don't know who's blocking, you don't know who's going out for a route, that really stresses the defense. And, you know, McCaffrey's, 205 pounds? Kamara's, 215? I mean, these guys are workhorses in their own way. And the Saints now have Mark Ingram, too. So those are great examples of teams that have kind of bucked tradition or gone against the face of what other people say you have to do with certain backs. So, yeah, those absolutely are different makers. Or even look at the Patriots in Monday night without Sony Michel. People are saying he was a bust early in the year and then he was the next greatest thing. They just couldn't run their regular stuff without him. And for a rookie, that says quite a bit, I think.
Oh, yeah. We're watching, and my wife turns to me. She's like, he makes it look so easy, right? I mean, and it's not easy. And, again, they struggled early in the year. The Steelers struggled early in the year. But the Ravens are the poster team right now in the league for struggling. You know, a team that was on a playoff pace that now has this huge game, rivalry game, both of these games back-to-back now with the bye in the middle that are going to define their season, because you go into this bye at 4-5 right now, Eric. It's very, very hard to be talking 2 weeks of any sort of optimism when you're 4-5 and the Steelers are 3 over 500 again.
Right. I mean, they were 4-5 last year at the bye. I mean, that was you know, they come off the blasting the Dolphins in that Thursday night game, and it was, you know, it wasn't even a contest. And then they come back the next week and lose at Tennessee. And I realize it's the Titans team that won a playoff game and everything, but, you know, that's really where it kind of tilted a little bit. And so obviously this game carries more importance, and I think this is a better version of the Ravens this year than last year. But, you know, you can see the parallels. Decent start, terrible little middle section, and then that turning point, and where they go from here depends a lot on Sunday's result, I think.
Well, we talked about their health early in the year, and, you know, other than Hayden Hurst, and they had C.J. Mosley for a minute and Jimmy Smith for a minute as well, they were mainly healthy. Now we're talking about going out in this offense where Lamar Jackson comes on every 6 or 8 plays. Flacco doesn't have the running game. They've really not committed to the run. And now they have 3 offensive linemen out against Carolina, and everything about it changed, I think, in Carolina. And they were really dominated on the road, and they look a little lost right now to me offensively.
Yeah, I don't think you can just blame it. You know, just a lot of people are saying, you know, October's just not their month and all that. I mean, I don't think you can, you know, you can really say. I know the recent results have patterned that way, but yeah, I think it's absolutely more what you described. And, you know, you get Jimmy Smith back and you expect the Jimmy Smith that people were fearing losing when the suspension comes down. Well, he hasn't been very good, in my opinion. I'm not breaking down every single technique and every single play of his, but what I've seen hasn't been all that good. So,
and apparently, like right now, Hayden's playing out of his mind again, right? Where 6 weeks ago he wasn't playing well, and we were talking about, you want a corner, pick one. We got Humphrey, we got Smith, we got Tavon. We had all these guys, and now all of a sudden it's Humphrey's down, Smith's gimpy. Here comes Antonio Brown and Smith-Schuster. This does not feel like a favorable matchup coming in here this week, and the Steelers rarely come in here with a puddle between their legs. They sort of like coming in here and playing, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a big test for a defense that, a couple of weeks ago we were sort of saying, hey, you can't ignore what the Ravens are doing, and now it's like, well, you can't for all the wrong reasons too. I mean, there's some spots there where you say, again, I'm not putting it all on them, but I'm just saying, I don't know that we can rightfully talk about them as one of the best defenses anymore. And it's a full team thing. But
it's 5 quarters old, by the way, too, right? Like literally 5 quarters old, right? Like 7 points going into the fourth quarter for Drew Brees, and this defense is great shake. So now 5 quarters later, you look up and you're saying, whoa, 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 what happened to what we were doing 5-6 weeks ago?
Absolutely. And that's the funny thing about this league is that one game or that short of a stretch, 5 quarters, whatever it is, I mean, that can change the narrative. And look, I understand they held Brees to, 202 yards for the game. That looks pretty good. But when you make a couple late breakdowns, you blame, sure, the offense for not putting you in a better position, but also that defense for just not making enough big plays. And just the early goings against Carolina. So, there were obviously some strange decisions in there, like the fake punt from their own end zone and all that. I mean, that suggests a pretty strong trust in their defense, but it wasn't warranted with the play that they backed it up with in the, especially in the second quarter there.
Eric Edholm does all things football and has for a couple decades. You can find him now out on Twitter at Eric_Edholm, EDHOLM, as well as at Pro Football Weekly. Tell everybody about the true turnover thing that you have going on, because everyone has a unique marketing strategy. You do turnovers.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's putting the ball on the ground, so to speak. But, everybody charts turnovers in 2 ways, fumbles and interceptions, right? And we say, okay, what's their net? They have, 5 more, quote-unquote, turnovers than their opponents. But to me, if you really truly want to look at turnovers, you have to include missed field goals, right? Because the other team gets the ball at that spot. It's a missed opportunity for points. And also for fourth down failures. If you go for it on fourth down and don't make it, same thing. It's a turnover on downs. I don't know why we don't count those in the equation. So I do it for you, and that's what I do every week. And, the team that stands out the most, the Ravens were one of the best teams in football. They were the best team in football last year on my turnover table. I think they were plus 23. So that's 23 additional possessions they got last year that their opponents did. New England was second. We see the top teams up there. Philadelphia, I think, was tied for third. So there's a pattern there. I mean, the Ravens were able to be competitive last year because they got the ball back. And that's really the only thing that kind of kept them in the race a little bit. And, this year they're right towards the middle. I haven't run the numbers this week yet, but they're right around 0 right now. So that's another big factor as well. And the Cleveland Browns, how they have as good a turnover ratio as they do and as bad a record as they do, that to me is a snapshot of the Hugh Jackson era, is that they just can't win games. I mean, they may actually be a decent football team hiding in sheep's clothing, but we just haven't seen it yet because they kiss away opportunities time and time again. They have more turnovers created than any football team in the NFL and just can't do anything with it.
Eric Edholm is our guest from Pro Football Weekly. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at the Modell Lyric. They got shows for the families. I want to tell everybody about Sesame Street Live on November 16th and 17th, as well as the Charlie Brown Christmas coming up on December 9th, and, of course, the Rock and Roll. I got a chat with Ronnie Platt coming up later on this week from the band Kansas. We're also going to hear from the violinist David Ragsdale from Kansas this week. Also putting tickets on sale for various stuff. You need to go to the Modell-Lyric website. But let's see. John Mellencamp in February, Straight No Chaser coming up, Joe Bonamassa, comedy with Jim Gaffigan coming up, as well as Dancing with the Stars on January the 10th, and George Lopez doing some special Latin comedy, which I'm digging. So George Lopez showing up down at the Modell Lyric. Tickets going on sale this week. We got a cool pre-sale thing happening that we'll tell you more about here at WNST.net. I got flowers around me. They're purple for the week. They are beautiful. It's Sporticulture. They deliver these flowers anywhere in the world, one click away at sporticulture.com. My pal Court's going to come on. We're going to talk some Houston Oilers during the bye week and bore everyone next week. But Court has the official license. He is a Maryland guy right out on the west side of town. They grow all these flowers. I went out there. Incredible. Acres and acres of flowers, and they ship them to you. They also do officially licensed college teams. So if you got that on your mind or you want to ship your Steelers friends some Steeler flowers, why not? They'll look better without. They'll look better. The Ravens flowers look better. They're purple. Ship the purple flowers. It's Steelers week. Sporticulture.com, the way to find out about them. Patrick's down in Essex, my old stomping grounds, with the cold beer, the tasty food, and something every night of the week. Like Thursday night is steak dinner and prime rib. Monday's taco night. Tuesday is shrimp. Wednesday is wings night. And, of course, any bar in Essex, not a real bar in Essex unless you have a Johnny U wall. They have a Johnny Unitas wall in the back. Get on down to Patrick's. Got the bands on the weekends as well. And we're going to be doing a Ravens show down there in a couple of weeks. I'll be telling you more about that. We'll be bringing a Ravens player to Patrick's in Essex. Eric Edholm is here. He is with Pro Football Weekly. He's been my friend for a long time, covering all things football. You know, I wrote something down that you said about statistics and the Browns and turnovers and all that stuff. The statistics lie, right? In a week when the Ravens have 11 sacks on Mariota, and, you know, a lot of that stuff's sort of outlier, isn't it, in a one-game basis in so many ways. National Football